Right, we're back and you're back, so come on in. This is the Rise podcast. I'm your host, Toria Farrell, and thanks for the feedback. Our first podcast really seemed to hit the mark with you out there, and we really appreciate your contact, getting in contact with us. We had messages from Singapore, from India, from people around the UK, and it seemed to be really fired up with the topics that we touched on in that very first episode. So we are back here for more conversation. Just a couple of thanks first. I'd like to give thanks to Disruptive Live, who are hosting us and helping us with the podcast today. So really appreciate that. The support from our partners, we touched on that in the first episode, and this is we're here today because of partnership from Disruptive Live. So what are we on about today? Well, have you ever thought what it'd be like to be mentored? The Rise 2025 mentoring programme is now open. What is that? Well, the applications are open until the 9th of March, so you've still got time to get your application in. In the programme, you're paired with an industry mentor. There are mentee events like speed networking. You get access to industry events, and there are training sessions on personal branding, career mapping, boosting resilience. And you can tap into the peer-to-peer support from an ever-growing Rise network. So participation in the programme, if you're successful, is free of charge thanks to the support of our industry partners and the invaluable time given by the Rise mentors. So if you're ready to rise, you know what to do. Go to the Rise website, risewib.com, to complete your application. You're thinking about it, right? You are, I know. Maybe yours is in. Congratulations, you can sit back. Yeah, I've done it. But for those of you who are listening and you're hovering over that keyboard and you're thinking, don't tell me, it's not right for me. It's not right. No, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll let you into a secret. I personally didn't think I was material for the Rise mentoring programme either. And when a colleague at DAZN came and tried to sort of persuade me, I was like, nah, I'm well past it. There's nothing rising for me. My pudding's not rising. I'm not a broadcast engineer. I'm not. You know, that internal voice, it really is, that internal voice, pretty rubbish. She went, and you know who you are that was trying to convince me. She said, you're the sort of person, exactly the kind of candidate that probably needs that mentoring. So mentoring really matters. In 2020, 71% of Fortune 500 companies in the US, they're the big hitters, they had mentoring programs. Fast forward to 2024, a whopping 98% of those big hitting companies have mentoring programs. And why? Because mentoring works. Sun Systems, they followed 1,000 employees over their mentoring programs over 5 years. And again, at some more big numbers, 5 times more likely to progress in your career and to be promoted. So we know it works. You're paired with somebody that helps you individually to grow where you want to grow, and you get that trusted guidance. So, enough from me. I'm here with 2 contributors who are going to talk through their own personal experiences of being mentees, how it's made a difference in their career. And plus, we're going to look also about how we can offer peer-to-peer mentoring as well to those around us. So, May Coughlan, can I come to you first? You're a freelance video engineer, a camera operator, a lead LED technician with 11 years experience in live entertainment, broadcast and sport. Or from ABBA Voyage to Faithless Summer Festival's digital pantos. I have to talk to you about that. And you were shortlisted and recognised in the RTS Technology Awards. So thank you so much. You're a very busy person, so to have you here is fantastic. And Tia Shenton, who is a broadcast engineer on a degree apprenticeship with Channel 4. And you've been working on simulcast systems, fast channels, HDR, and you've been working on the IBC Kappa Accelerator project for Connect and Produce Anywhere.
Yes.
And shortlisted for Young Talent of the Year at the Rise Awards.
Thank you.
So welcome, both of you. Let me come to you first, May. So if I just take you back, let's go back in time. Take you back to March time in 2023. Where were you at your career around that time?
So for me personally, I just moved to Kent. My hometown is Cardiff. So trying to have that transition and change of moving to a brand new place meant all of my network had kind of gone. So I still had them in Cardiff, but I was no longer there. So I was kind of in a place where I'd slightly moved industries. I'd moved away from broadcast and moved more into events. And also I'd then moved away from my home as well, where all my network was based.
Big change then.
Huge change, yeah, massive change. And the thing is that it's quite normal as well, but people don't always talk about it. So people leave to go to university, or their friendship groups change. People leave for new jobs, changes there too. So it's not something that, it's just me that has gone through this. But when you are going through it, you do feel quite isolated and alone. So I changed my career a little bit in terms of where I was from broadcast to events. I was working for a very amazing company that were lovely, but it was very, very male-based and it was a very small company. So I didn't have a huge chance to develop a lot of contacts because the company was small and because I was the only female there. So I was struggling a little bit to kind of work out where I sat within my industry. And basically, I got to a point where my role had changed into being a hybrid role. I was working from home, but I was also then kind of going on site. And on site, I was meeting some amazing people and gaining a load of skills. But when I was working from home, I really missed that social interaction that I used to get when I was actually working with people every day. So for me, I was kind of at a crossroads, you could probably say, where I didn't quite know where I was going to be going. I didn't quite know what direction I needed to head in. And also I just needed that little bit of help and guidance that I just couldn't really see within my company at the time.
And where did Rise sort of step into that? When did you sort of,
100%.
How did you find out about it?
About Rise, yeah. So Rise I saw on a LinkedIn post. So a friend of mine who knew of the programme had shared it. And I was then like completely, I didn't even realise it existed when I first kind of saw this LinkedIn post. Didn't follow it for years, hadn't seen the progress. I'd just seen this post on LinkedIn where they were saying we're open. And it was around this time, so obviously around February 2023. And at that point, I was like, oh, it's going to be in about 2 months' time. That's perfect in terms of work. I can kind of ask my bosses what they think and kind of get a little bit of an opinion and research a little bit in that time before I had to apply for the deadline. And basically, it was one of those things where I kind of read the first few paragraphs and just realised this was something that I needed to apply for, whether I got it or not. I just realised that it was something that I really needed. I needed to open my network out a little bit more than what it was, especially because my network was very much based in Wales, which is quite small. So even though Wales is growing and there's a lot of potential in the creative arts there, the problem is that it still is small. I know a lot of people in Wales, but then bring that to, say, London or Kent, where I'm now based, that's just a tiny drop in the ocean compared to the people I needed to be speaking to and needed to actually know. So obviously from that point of view, I was like, Rise could give me those friendships that I really needed to build, where I'd left a lot of my friends when I'd moved to Kent. So I was going to be building friendships within the industry that I was working in. But also I was going to be kind of getting all these experiences. And I thought, do you know what? I just need to research this and potentially apply if I kind of feel that I'm confident enough to.
Sounded like you really kind of felt that crossroads meant you had to dive into something new. You had to be
100%,
kind of brave to get there.
And also potentially with the mentoring, you're not sure who you're going to get. And I was like, actually, that's such an exciting and a good thing, because I needed someone who was slightly removed from what I was actually dealing with within work to actually then help me, I think, move forward. So I think that's kind of why I wanted to look into Rise more, and ultimately that's why I applied.
And one thing perhaps people might not know, but that pairing is done very consciously. So the mentors are there, but they are actually paired very specifically to a candidate that would benefit, that the Rise organisers, Carla and team will look and say, I think actually they're going to have some chemistry, they're going to be able to work together.
Definitely.
Because that's what mentoring is. It isn't just a one-way street, it is a partnership based on where you want to take your goals to.
Well, as an example of that with my mentor, basically we were grouped together because we were both very flexible to each other's needs. So I was working away quite often, and my mentor, the brilliant Stephen Stewart, he was flexible in terms of when we would be meeting, whether that was on a video call, whether that was face to face, and he was very flexible within his time to actually be able to be kind of giving me the support that I needed in mentoring. That's one of the reasons why we were put together, because he had the time that I might not have been able to work with within my schedule. So it really is kind of like perfect pairings that Carla does, which is amazing.
Isn't it? If I come to you, Tia, so you're at Channel 4, and you came from the Brit School, is that right? Yeah, and then came in as a degree apprentice in broadcast engineering. So you're coming sort of from a different, from kind of an education kind of background coming in. Were you nervous? What brought you to the mentoring? Were you kind of, how did you find out a bit? Was it through college? Was it through social media?
So I started Channel 4 back in 2022, back in November, as the Degree Apprentice scheme. I was told by my manager, actually Sue Farrell, phenomenal woman. She told me in the start of 2023, she told me about this, about the scheme, and she said it would be really interesting for me to partake and have excellent opportunities to kind of grow more. Because at the time I was 18 going on 19, I had just left college, completely changed industry from kind of more production to going into engineering, which is a completely different ballpark. So I was quite apprehensive and really, really nervous actually to apply, being that I was less than 6 months into my 3-year course. I hadn't grasped everything at work yet. Things were still very new, and I was like, I wasn't quite sure what I could give, and if I was the right person. There were so many other people I thought that were more deserving of the position, who would be able to garner more from it and have more of an idea of what they need, rather than me, who applied saying, I'm very new, completely open to everything. So
I think it's such a tendency just to go, oh, not me.
Why not you?
Why not, Tia? Why not you? When it comes into that, it is about where you want to go.
Yeah.
And that whether or not you're at the start of your journey as you were, or whether you were crossing over into a new environment and then, and coming, sort of having moved, that's all a place where you need that support and the encouragement, and also opening your mind to the, to all the things that the potential. I mean, it is finding those opportunities, finding the best of yourself to make the most of those opportunities and those circumstances to see what you can do. And I think Rise really encapsulates that. So, question to both of you. So the programme is the centre is these sessions with your one-to-one sessions with your mentor, and then there's a whole other load of different elements about it that are over the 6 months. But how did that first meeting go with your mentor? I mean, how did you decide what it was you were going to do with that time, May? I'll come to you first.
So initially we had like a quick Teams call just to explain a little bit about how the programme was going to go forward. So we had our emails from Carla, but it was really nice to have that personable, really quick chat where it was like, hey, I'm Stephen, hey, I'm May, what do you do, what do you do? And then kind of move forward, arrange our first meetup, and also then look into what we were going to discuss within the next 3 to 6 months. So we had some goals already in mind. My first meeting was actually really, really interesting because I had to answer a few little questions, quite truthfully sometimes, where it was like, and we were going to do a personality test basically. So I was answering things like, how do you handle this kind of situation? Do you prefer this or that? And in the end, we then had the results and basically we went through them. And it was so interesting because you learned a little bit about yourself, but also you were then learning how you can then approach other things within your work or even your personal life. So as an example, if you were having a meeting and you really needed to kind of work out how you were going to approach a subject, you can look at that and work out who your meeting is with and find out how they best receive information. And it was so interesting. We did a little personality test, and also then looked forward into kind of how we can use those answers to really benefit both me professionally, but also me personally, on how I handle issues or how I move forward in work.
It's really giving you those tools, isn't it?
Yeah,
'Cause quite often,
definitely.
I think I have conversations with women a lot who sometimes they just don't know how to get through a barrier. They're not making headway with a project, or they're finding that there's a difficult conversation to be had.
Yeah.
And they just don't know. And having some of those tools to say, right, the best way to make this person feel comfortable and ready to collaborate, or to get around a tricky situation where you might have to do some compromise.
Yeah.
Being able to understand how, and sometimes those things you thought, oh, I've never really thought about how to do it like that. Being able to talk that out is really valuable.
Well, it was really interesting because, like, with me personally, my personality generally people look at as like a red personality. Now, what that means, which some people think is a little bit negative because they think like red and they associate that colour, or they associate certain like driven or those kind of words with people who are very strict or very like strong-willed. But actually what it means is that we're the people who get things done. So we'll be given a task and we will complete the task. And the thing is, when you break it down into what your personality is like, you realise why you're in the job you are, and it's because it does actually suit your personality. But also what it means, you can understand yourself a little bit better. So as an example, with my personality type, if there's something I'm not a particular fan of, I can be very, very stubborn, and also be a bit more like, I need to know what we're doing now. It's a bit more immediate for me. But again, that's why I work in events. I have a very immediate reaction when I see an audience celebrating what we've produced. So I know I'm in an industry that suits my personality, but then the personality test really for me helped me understand other people that I work with, as opposed to, I know myself pretty well. When I look at then other people, it's kind of getting used to how they act. So that first kind of hour or two that I had with Stephen, just breaking it down and looking into the little things that I was kind of struggling with, understanding those people that I was having struggles with was actually so positive and changed the whole way that I looked into kind of what I'd gone to Stephen with in the first place.
Yeah, it's really
so it was perfect.
So I think in every single conversation will kind of coalesce around very personal things that you need to do. So it could be, goodness, I don't know where I want to go in my career, and that might follow down that route. I had a little bit of that with my mentor in terms of, okay, what is it you want to do? You know, what is it, where are you going? And exploring that, or exploring those techniques and things, saying, right, I in order to get to my next stage, I need to have these tools.
Definitely.
And you know, so both technical and kind of personal development.
The
really.
other thing as well is that I thought potentially with Rise, because it was quite professional, that it would be a little bit more kind of like, you know, serious. But me and Stephen met up in a coffee shop. We had cake, we were like coffees everywhere, and it was so calm and relaxing. And it just felt like I was meeting someone who's more of a friend, who was helping me, rather than this is another work programme that I'm on.
I think
so
that's
I think
the
it was
myth a little
important.
bit, isn't it? I mean, Tia, I don't know if you found that. Was your first meeting quite formal, or was it, I think people probably think, oh, is it training? Will I have to wear a suit? Will I have to be on my best behaviour? Will I have to, you know, not swear? You know, all of those sort of things. I mean, how was your first meeting, and how did you decide what you wanted to do with that time?
So going in, I thought it'd be really, really formal, really kind of structured. But when I had my first meeting, so my mentor is Caris Hughes, amazing principal PQ display engineer and SIBT manager. She's fabulous. So really going in, I really was kind of not sure what to expect or what the kind of flow of the conversation would be, but Caris did an amazing job. We introduced each other. I got to know a lot about her and what she did. Obviously, being new into an industry, I had no idea what a PQ engineer was or anything to do about that. Now I've done a lot more research, so very good. We went through a presentation which the mentors had been given. We went through that and talked a lot about kind of my goals, what I wanted to do, which was very interesting, both self-discovery-wise for myself, to talk to someone who works and has worked for such a time, to get a bit more insight. So we talked about ourselves, and then we talked about my goals, and we then started setting along both short-term and long-term goals for myself and my development. There were a few things which I really, really wanted, or I thought was really like pivotal for me to have got done by a certain amount of time. But she was amazing and really kind of slowing it all down, being like, no, it's fine.
Something that could be quite overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
Something new into the industry. It's like, I don't even know what questions to ask about the questions I have to ask.
Yes, totally. She's been amazing in really guiding me, and I think throughout the whole journey of the scheme, she's been so fabulous, even beyond that, in guiding me and helping me with any questions or scenarios that I didn't know how to navigate, because it is very difficult going in straight from school into a workplace environment, in such a professional environment, going to all these events and not really knowing how to execute yourself in the most efficient way. So she's been amazing in doing all of that and helping me kind of navigate those.
And that's
scenarios.
not, you've got no monopoly on that being kind of new to industry. I think a lot of it in Rising the Core conversations, many of us coming and be intimidated about being in that environment and holding our own. I mean, you both have done some fantastic work, fantastic technical projects that you can be, in fact, you know, the fact that you've been recognised by Royal Television Award and Rise Awards just demonstrates the sort of innovation but we seem to still find sometimes that hard to vocalise and to shout about and feel that space is, we own that space, we can have it, we're doing that work, we don't have to apologise or feel overwhelmed, but it is easy to feel overwhelmed. Aside from the one-to-one partnership with your mentor and working personally on all those elements, there's a lot of other parts to the programme, which I don't know which one, May, you found the most helpful or fun or challenging. I mean, what are the parts? I mean, from the networking events to industry shows and things, which part of the programme did you find?
I think the biggest thing that I took away from Rise was just having this amazing group of women that are now our friends and basically our cheerleaders. When we do something amazingly well in work or even just personally, they are there and they are kind of clapping, they are supporting us all the way through, and we always have this amazing relationship and bond with the people that we've been in that Rise network with. But it's not just our own mentee group, it's the mentee groups from like this year, last year. There's always kind of this community feel when you've now joined Rise, that you now have support, you now have a network of friends. And I think that was the biggest takeaway. So I went into it looking for that and I got it. And I think that was the biggest thing that I got from the programme, just this amazing group of women who are now cheerleaders for us all, which is amazing.
You just dip in, you can say, well, who knows about this and who knows about that?
Definitely. They just celebrate as well. Yeah. We're always there to celebrate other people's successes. And I think for a very long time, the industry had almost been competitive, especially with other women. So it was almost like, because there wasn't many of us, the ones that were there were like almost competition to each other. And I'm not that kind of person. So in that industry, I always was a little bit like, oh no, like, I don't want to be your competition. I'm not here to be competition. I'm here just to enjoy the work that I do. So joining something like Rise, where actually we're not competitive with each other, we're just there to celebrate each other instead, was just like the biggest takeaway I got.
That's fantastic. And what about you, Tia? What did you find?
Oh, I'm going to say it was very similar. It's so amazing to go into a networking event where you don't know anyone and you go up and you speak to someone and they go, oh, I'm part of Rise. And you've instantly got a connection. You've instantly got something to talk about, to ask, oh, how did you find the scheme? Who was your mentor? What did you learn from it? I think that has been such a phenomenal takeaway. It's amazing to see such a strong group of women together. And as you said, being each other's cheerleaders. I always see on LinkedIn people supporting each other. And I think that's amazing. So always, liking and commenting and congratulating and holding each other up.
Yes.
Which I think is
it just keeps giving, because the programme is 6 months, but it isn't just 6 months, is it? It just keeps on going. And regardless of whether you've got a real fire in your belly and you've got ambitious and you know where you're going, or you are just banging about, not quite sure. I always say a lot of my LinkedIn posts are about kind of seeds and plants. I'm a bit obsessed with that metaphor, but it took me quite a long time to, maybe because I've been around the industry for 20 years where you really had to fight for your position. I was often the only woman in a sea of fellas, and you get used to a way of surviving and doing things. And so it took me quite a long time to get those barriers to come down. And one piece of advice I gave for the mentee group that came after, one of my colleagues at ITV, and fantastic Das, and I just said, you know what, take this from me, just throw yourself in there.
Totally.
Try not to be afraid. literally everybody is there to help you get to where you want to go. Explore things, ask those questions, take all the support because it is there for you. Don't hold back. I think I was guilty of holding back because I was scared. I was genuinely scared about saying I didn't know how to ask for help and I didn't know quite where. And it took that time. But the Rise Network were there and they were like, yeah, you take your time, Toria. We'll see you when you get there. So I think that's a huge takeaway about the programme because it isn't just that period of time. Fantastic. This is, really the important pieces of the puzzle for the whole of the Rise mentoring scheme. And if this is if you're listening to this and you think, actually, this definitely is for me, and that's now tipped you over, go to the Rise website. You can apply on there. You've got to the 9th of March, plenty of time. Yes, get your application in.
Are you ready to rise? Applications for the 2025 Rise Mentoring Programme are now open until March the 9th. You will get paired with an industry mentor and be able to attend mentee events like speed networking, gain access to industry events, and it'll include sessions covering everything from career mapping to building resilience. Participation in the programme is free of charge thanks to the generous support of our industry partners and the invaluable time given by our mentors. If you're ready to rise, get to the website www.risewib.com and you can apply from there.
Right, welcome back after that little break. Let's hop forward now. Both you, May and Tia, have been shortlisted for industry awards, so well deserved and so important for visibility. Women like yourselves are bringing so much expertise and value to the broadcast sector. I just wondered, you're now, May, freelancing, so you're working out in the industry in live events. Tia, been working on the IBC Accelerator programme. I'm just wondering what impact you both feel mentoring has had on your career, kind of now looking back. I mean, if not dramatic, it's not enough to say, how has it affected your life? Was there a moment where the penny dropped, where you thought, okay, I'm on my way. Something has shifted dramatically and I'm doing it?
I think so. I think it's definitely had a massive impact on my life and kind of my confidence and my feeling of capability of facing certain situations with confidence and with vigour. But you talk about a penny drop moment, I've been thinking a lot about that. And yes, I very much did. At the start of the scheme, I talked to Caris a lot about networking events because I'm very nervous. I felt really intimidated going up to industry professionals and asking them at the time, probably basic questions which I hadn't had much experience with. But she gave me the advice of just do it with confidence, and a lot of the times at industry events she'd kind of introduce me to people. But I think the penny drop moment was last year Channel 4 hosted a Sympathy event at Horseshoe Road, and I actually was introducing her to people, and I was kind of like, wow. And she said, Tia, you're doing it. I was like, oh, I am. And it's a moment that stuck with me, and it was something so small, but I was like, yes, I feel like that all of the work that we both put in during the scheme and afterwards, like maintaining this relationship, has really paid off, and it feels really good. It feels really good.
Oh, fantastic. And May, was there a similar moment that you kind of thought, actually, I understand now what this has given me?
Yeah, I think with my experience, mine was a little bit more slow burn. So I don't think there was a particular penny drop. But I think over time I was just realising, how I now approach this subject is now different. How I do this is now different. And over time, I then kind of realised how many skills and kind of the abilities that I'd managed to kind of get from Rise and my mentorship. It was those kind of little things that I realised that then were building up into basically making me a much better person professionally. And I think that's the thing that we have to think of as well. We're all building blocks. So sometimes with programmes like this, you might not get like a penny drop moment. And that's not always a bad thing either, because sometimes you realise that actually there's all these tiny little building blocks where 6 months ago you were only like 2 or 3 blocks high, and now all of a sudden you're like 10 blocks high, and you're doing all of these amazing things where actually you wouldn't have been able to do them 6 months before when you hadn't started the Rise programme. So for me personally, it was more of a slow burn. It was more like just noticing these little things in how I was behaving, how I was approaching different things and different topics. And I think that was the most important thing for me, that I just realised that I was still achieving things, even if they seemed a bit slower, or even if I didn't think I was. All of a sudden something would pop up and I'd be like, oh yeah, this and this. And then you'd be like, oh wow, amazing. Like, I've learned that from Rise. And I think that's overall made me into a better professional, just having those little things adding up.
I think it's that confidence, isn't it, about, actually offering your services or offering to say, well, I'm going to get involved in that project, or it's putting yourself forward and knowing that you've got that capacity to do whatever the work is or to work through it. Rise has got mentoring programs in the UK. The Rise application is open now, but also there are mentoring programs in Europe, in Asia Pac, India, North America, Canada, and there's a chapter developing in the Middle East as well. So it is something that is growing exponentially. But we should also talk, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier, about peer mentoring. So there are these programs, and obviously people apply. I know Carla would love to give every single person who applied that opportunity. There's just only so many mentors to go around. So I think talking about peer mentoring, because that's something we can all work on here and now. So peer support can be something as simple as offering to meet somebody for a chat, giving a tour of your workplace, or just listening, not trying to fix anything, just being present with that person as they're working through whatever they need to work through. Some companies have got really well established support networks and programs. Others have got ERGs, employee representative groups. But if not, and you're listening now and you're thinking, well, we haven't got anything like that where I am, maybe you should think about how you might set that up. It could be as simple as saying, I'm booking a room somewhere, I'm going to be in there from this time, come and sit and we'll chat about whatever. It is, again, about, I think you touched on it before, about that togetherness, about being, it might not be that there's a specific problem, it might just be, actually, I'm a bit exhausted and I could do with flopping down and just talking about something. So it is something that actually that peer-to-peer support will be addressing at the Rise events. International Women's Day is coming up. There are events in London on the 6th of March and on the 7th of March up in Manchester. And it's something that we'll be talking a lot about activating that action not only on industry, but also amongst ourselves. Our network is part of our power. It's part of our superpower in terms of we can amplify our voices through our numbers. I was going to ask you, Tia, how you have felt that peer support has helped you in the transition. You're about to graduate.
Yes.
Tia's actually doing a fantastic end of project, which I'm fascinated about, using AI for access services and for sign language. So you're on that cusp of changing from being a student into being a graduate.
Fully fledged, yeah.
Fully fledged. With Channel 4.
And I just wondered how peer support and maybe the Rise peer support has helped you or is preparing you for that transition.
Well, obviously I've been a degree apprentice, so I've been working at Channel 4 for almost the last 3 years, which is a phenomenal number to actually look back and think about how it was when I started working, when I started my course. But the peer network's been amazing. Like, for an example, Deanna O'Brien, someone in our mentorship scheme, I reached out and I was like, hey, I'd really love to see what you do as part of your daily job. Because coming straight from college into working at Channel 4, I've seen what Channel 4 has to offer in terms of job roles. So it's been really interesting, I think, for me to really see what variety there is out there and to see what job roles look like in different companies and different industries. So going to Arkiva, where she works, and seeing all the satellites and seeing how she is an engineer, seeing how people from different companies that I've visited over the 3 years that I've worked at Channel 4, seeing how they operate and seeing how they work. That peer network in that sense has been phenomenal. And also just talking to women and talking to people about how they find working at a specific place or how they find a specific job role. I think in that development from degree apprentice to then engineer solely, it's been...
I love how you say that so proudly. I'm an engineer.
I'm an engineer.
It's me. I'm an engineer.
I love being an engineer. Just saying, I really do love it.
Go to the newsagent. Can I have the paper? And can I have... and I'm an engineer.
I do say to my family, guys, I'm a broadcast engineer. I can solve this television problem. Don't worry. Plug the HDMI cable in. But no, it's been phenomenal. And the community has been amazing in allowing me to kind of have a look around, see what's out there, especially in the lead up to my finishing my course, which is very exciting.
It's excitement
It's
rather
exciting.
than kind of feeling kind of in any way overwhelmed by that change.
Yeah.
And May, so you've transitioned as well from working for a company to working for yourself,
Yes.
which is quite a big thing to be freelance.
Yeah,
Now it's you.
a very,
It's
very
the-
big step.
And
So-
how has that peer support been able to
Yeah.
support you? Has it been part of that decision to go that direction?
So for me, it was one of those things where the Rise mentorship, again, lots of amazing women. One of the people from there, Chrissy, who's now a broadcast engineer herself, basically she was working at a company called Limitless, run by another Rise mentee called Claire Wilkie. And basically, Chrissy was also on our mentee scheme in 2023. And basically saying we have mentors in the room too.
Yes.
We have everybody here. But basically for Chrissy, she then kind of got introduced to me. We're very similar in what we were doing, and our kind of mentee group, we all had very different roles, which again, like Tia was saying, that was amazing because you can then be like, oh, that's so interesting. What do you do? But me and Chrissy became really good friends because we were so similar. So it's one of those things where it was amazing to see other roles, but also seeing something that was so similar as well meant that you got a really good connection because you could be kind of relating to each other a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing is, without having those contacts that were already being made in the background, like the peer support from people you've previously worked with, it doesn't always work, because when you're looking to have those people employ you or give you contracts, you really need people who know you really, really well. And like I was saying previously, and like Tia said, I got in contact with Limitless when I went freelance. I got in contact with other people that I'd previously been working with who I knew would be looking for freelance technicians as well. From that, basically, I was then able to start building. Now, when you go freelance, it is always really worrying because you're not sure when you're going to get work. So I already had quite a good grounding financially, because otherwise it would have been a bit of a worry. And also I already had contacts that I knew I could actually hone in on. But also it was kind of going in, realising the positives that I was going to get from this. I now have a lot more time. I'm in more control of the work that I actually do. So when I was working in staff, sometimes you'll either have people who are very, very difficult, or you'll have situations that are difficult, or bits of the job that you might not be a fan of. Now, in my early days of freelancing, I can kind of look at companies, do work for them, and if they don't really suit my vibe, I can also look at other companies or people that I know I really want to work with. So I'm in a little bit more control now of what I do and when I do it. But I don't think I would have had the confidence to go freelance when I did if it wasn't for people like Rise, and if it wasn't for people like Chrissy, or people who actually like believe in you and know that you can do
And you're
such
not
an
on your
amazing
own.
job.
So,
yeah, even though freelancing can be very lonely because you're kind of not around a staff centre where you're like lots of colleagues. You're not alone because I have Rise. So when I first went freelance, I was reaching out and I was speaking to people. I've been quite busy, so I haven't actually managed to go to as many networking sessions as I'd like to. But that's also a positive thing. But it also means I can book things into my diary like networking if I really want or need to go to them. Yeah, it's one of those things where, for me, I went freelancing after a really bad experience, which actually kind of drove me to being like, no, I want to work for myself now because I can pick and choose what I want to do and where I want to go with my career. And after that bad experience, I've kind of completely turned that around and made it into a complete positive. Whereas I think previous to Rise, when something bad would happen, I just wouldn't know where to go. So I think even how I was handling myself during a bad experience meant I was able to turn it around.
You can hear there's some building, because we're building confidence while they're building in the background. I think that's probably the kind of the heart of Rise. It's building people up and building women into growing into themselves and taking chances, taking risks, and finding the work that suits them, that makes the most out of their skills and their attitude. Thank you so much. It's been so interesting. May and Tia, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Don't forget, you get your applications in rise.wib.com. You can also join the Rise mailing list. If you go onto the website, that's free. You'll get notifications about open events. Come and see us at the Rise stand, industry shows, MPTS, IBC. Don't forget to champion ERGs or peer support networks where you work, if that's something that you're thinking about. Thanks to May and Tia, and for Disruptive Live for supporting us with the recording today. Those International Women's Days events all outlined on the website. The 6th is down in London at the Curzon. The 7th is up at Pitch Shop in Manchester. And watch out for the next edition of the Rise podcast. We've been talking all about the perspective from the mentee, how it's really helped us grow. But we're going to be diving into the fact that it is a two-way relationship and looking at the mentor perspective. And I'm very excited that Paminda Gantry will be hosting the podcast after that. Well, she'll be joining guests to talk about how to get the most from the industry shows. That's going to be absolutely great. So that's it. That's all for now. So Tara, don't forget to share the links to the podcast with your networks, and do get in touch via the website rise.wib.com, or you can directly email the podcast team at risepodcast@gmail.com. All right, we'll see you the next time. Thanks very much.
You are listening to the Rise podcast. We've been digging into what helps drive gender diversity in media, broadcast and entertainment tech. Supported by industry partners, Rise's global initiatives empower individuals at every career stage, from youth education to C-suite leaders. As you've been hearing, partnering with Rise brings talent development, innovation, and a fully beneficial experience for all involved. Become a sponsor. Be part of shaping a more inclusive sector. Find out more at rise.wib.com or click the link in the pod notes.